Welcome to Styled Clean, from toxins to truth, one thread at a time, where we press pause on fast fashion and pull back the curtain on what's really stitched into our clothes. This is the podcast where we go behind the seams, follow the threads to their source, and rediscover fashion as an act of environmental stewardship. Hosted by Kathleen Audet, stylist and image consultant. This show is for people who believe their clothing is more than fabric. It's a living story that touches your spirit, your body, your mind, and your values. Styled Clean is where fashion meets stewardship. If you're ready to cultivate a wardrobe that honors your values and an ethical closet, you're in the right place. Now, let's unravel today's episode.
My next guest has a job that sounds like it belongs in a fantasy novel. He is literally the steward of 40 acres of forested land on an island in the Pacific Northwest. And yes, he does actually work in the woods. Forrest Inslee, and yes, that is his real name, is the Associate Director of Circlewood, a faith-based nonprofit mission, and I love this. Their mission is to accelerate the greening of faith. He's also the host of the Earth Keepers podcast that I've been on, which he started back in 2020 to learn from people who are actually doing the work of caring for the earth and to share those conversations with the rest of us. Forrest grew up in the Pacific Northwest, which means he has opinions about rain that most people don't. He said, and I'm not making this up, that one of the most radical acts a person can take is to go outside, sit in the rain, and just get wet. He's serious. And honestly, the more I talk to him, the more I think he's right. Forrest sits at the crossroads of faith, ecology, and the hard question of what it actually means to live with intention on this earth, which is very much in the DNA of what we talk about on Styled Clean. He's going to help us think about where our choices come from, what we're really connected to, and why a woman rescuing 80 earthworms on a bike path might be one of the most theologically interesting stories that you're going to hear all year. Welcome, Forrest, to the podcast. Thank you for being with me today on Style Clean.
Yeah, it's great to be here. We haven't talked in a while. Last time you were on my podcast, that was a great episode. It generated lots and lots of interest.
Oh, I'm glad. It was delightful. It was
back
really
on your
fun.
podcast. Congratulations on launching this new thing.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. I want to ask you a question. It's kind of a twofold question that'll let the audience know a little bit about you, but here goes. You spent years working at Circlewood? Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about that and how you got there? And then can you share a moment where you saw someone's relationship with the earth radically shift when they began approaching it as a spiritual practice rather than just a lifestyle choice?
Sure. Yeah. I really have been involved with what is now Circlewood since probably 2005. The original organization was Mustard Seed Associates, started by Tom Sine and run by he and his wife, Christine Sine. They eventually spawned an organization called Circlewood, which is a faith-based nonprofit that serves a diversity of church traditions. We serve any church community that seeks our help in their journey toward greener faith practices and toward a more holistic theology that includes the centrality of creation care. We do that with direct working one-to-one or person-to-person with churches, but we also have an online journal called The Ecological Disciple, and we have a podcast that I host called the Earth Keepers podcast. Through those venues, we aim to educate and inspire and equip a broad audience of Christ followers from many denominations, as well as those who are not aligned with any particular religious tradition. Our broad global work is grounded in a place, actually. So we take care of 40 acres of forested land in a place called Camano Island in Washington State. And so we care for the forest, and we also have our offices and workspaces there. So that keeps us grounded, I think, in our relationship to creation, even as we try to encourage that kind of relationship for others. I would say, just in terms of an example of relationship with creation change that I've seen. I mean, there's a million stories I could tell you, but maybe it makes sense just to tell you about the most recent one that comes to mind. And that is a person named Rachel. And she wrote just this week about her response to the podcast in particular. And I'll read a little bit of what she wrote in her email and then comment on that. She said that one small practice I began last year during Lent was to rescue earthworms from the bike path when walking my son to school by tossing them into the grass. Recently, though, we decided to bring them back to our quote unquote worm sanctuary, our raised garden beds. And the first day we picked up over 80 worms. The majority of these tiny creatures would have been squished by bikes and non-observant pedestrians otherwise, and this by humans who are using outdoor forms of transportation. Most people commute by vehicles, completely separated from the natural world. And the more separated we become, the less we care about harming and depleting our home. So she wrote much more than that, but in my mind, that note really represented a lot of change in her, which is pretty radical. I mean, is she saving the earth by saving the worms? Not really. But I think that act, it's really a spiritual practice, I would say. And by it, she expresses some pretty fundamental changes in her life. I think for one thing, the act of rescuing worms is an act of standing up against a lifestyle that ignores the little things, that disrespects other creatures, that is, as she put it, non-observant of the natural world. I think too, and her son giving worms new life in her garden at home, where her family has been raising food and learning about where their food comes from. I think in that same process, she is both learning and embracing the reality that her own life is grounded in dirt, right? And that our very lives depend on creatures like worms who make it possible for us to get sustenance from the soil. Now, I know Rachel, she's also been a student of mine, actually. And so I know she's a deep theological thinker. She always looks for the why of what she's doing. And so I think theologically, that practice of rescuing worms expresses her transformation in her understanding that God's desire is to restore the whole of creation and not just human souls. So it's all important. It's not just about people. It's about people in the context of the greater community of creation.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I think that we underestimate the importance of earthworms. I mean, without them, I just wonder if our entire ground ecological system wouldn't fall apart and we wouldn't have food or clothes from the ground.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
I mean, you can say that about so many of the creatures of the earth, right? Many of them we don't even know about. Think about the mycelium under the soil, right? Or the bacteria that play a crucial role in breaking down organic products into the soil. But you're right. I think we are often not aware of our existence and dependence on this really, really integral system, which needs every part.
Yeah. And even the idea that just that she was so aware of what was in front of her, which is something we all need to nurture and just be present and all of a sudden see. I mean, I live in the city, so the earthworms are not as plentiful on the sidewalks, but I also live in a ranching town, and where my husband and I walk, I'm just going to be looking for more earthworms. But the idea of just awareness is really the key, especially in the world.